You've been called observant. But no one ever explained why you notice things others completely miss. Not because you're overthinking, and not because you're trying too hard, but because your brain learned to process the world differently, faster in some ways and deeper in others. And if you've ever felt like you understand situations before they fully unfold, there's a reason for that. There's a form of intelligence that doesn't come from school, degrees, or memorization. It develops through adaptation, through repeated exposure to complexity, unpredictability, and pressure. And psychology doesn't always give it one simple label, but the pattern is real. A mind that learns by decoding environments. A mind that becomes efficient at predicting, analyzing, and adjusting. And when you break it down, it shows up in very specific and consistent ways. The first sign is that you read people faster than they realize, not just what they say, but how they say it. Tone changes, micro-expressions, small pauses. Your brain automatically compares what's being said with how it's being expressed, and when those don't match, you notice instantly. For example, in a simple conversation, someone says they're fine, but their tone drops slightly, and their eye contact breaks for a second. Most people ignore it, but your brain flags it as inconsistency. This isn't guesswork. It's pattern recognition built over time. The second sign is that you naturally think ahead. You don't just respond in the moment. You simulate outcomes. If this happens, then what comes next? If I say this, what reaction will it trigger? Imagine you're about to send a message, and before sending it, you already predict how the other person might respond and how the conversation will unfold. This is anticipatory thinking, a cognitive process where your brain runs short-term predictions before you act, making your decisions more calculated and structured. The third sign is that you stay functional under pressure. When situations become intense, your thinking doesn't shut down, it sharpens. Instead of panic, you move toward problem solving because your brain has already experienced enough complexity to recognize patterns in stressful moments. Like when something suddenly goes wrong, and while others hesitate, you immediately start figuring out the next step. So your response has structure instead of confusion. The fourth sign is that you notice small details most people ignore, not just visually but behaviorally. You remember how someone reacted before, you catch inconsistencies, you track patterns across time without trying, like noticing that someone's behavior slowly changes over days, even if nothing obvious is said. This is heightened environmental scanning, where your brain filters less information out, so it captures more signals. The fifth sign is that you learn faster from experience than from explanation. You don't need long theories. One real situation teaches you more than hours of instruction. For example, after making one mistake, you quickly adjust your approach and don't repeat it the same way again, because your brain focuses on cause and effect. What worked, what didn't, what changed. And once you see the pattern, you rarely forget it. The sixth sign is that you adjust your behavior depending on the environment. You're not the same in every setting. And that isn't fake, it's adaptive. You read the room, understand expectations, and shift your communication style accordingly. Like speaking differently with close friends compared to a formal setting without consciously forcing it. This is social calibration, a skill that allows you to move through different environments efficiently. The seventh sign is that your intuition feels fast, but it's built on data. Sometimes you just know something feels off, but that feeling comes from stored patterns, past observations, subtle inconsistencies all processed quickly beneath awareness, like sensing tension in a situation before anything obvious happens. This is intuitive processing, fast but structured. The eighth sign is that you question things more deeply than others. You don't accept surface-level explanations easily. You look for underlying reasons. Why did this happen? What's influencing this behavior? What's missing from this situation? Like analyzing not just what someone did, but why they might have done it. Your thinking naturally goes one layer deeper. The ninth sign is that you're comfortable with complexity. Simple answers don't fully satisfy you. You can hold multiple perspectives at once and understand that situations can have more than one valid explanation, like seeing both sides of an argument without immediately choosing one. This is cognitive flexibility, and it allows you to adapt your thinking instead of locking into one rigid view. The 10th sign is that you read between the lines, not just in conversations, but in systems. You understand unspoken rules, social dynamics, and hidden expectations, like entering a new place and quickly sensing how people interact and what is expected without being told. You can enter a new environment and quickly sense how things operate without needing everything explained. The 11th sign is that you learn from other people's outcomes. You don't always need to make the mistake yourself. You observe what happens to others and adjust your behavior accordingly, like watching someone face consequences and internally noting what to avoid. This is advanced observational learning where your brain treats external events as useful data. The 12th sign is that you rely more on internal logic than external validation. You don't just follow what looks right, you analyze what makes sense. Your decisions are based on your own processing rather than crowd behavior, like choosing differently even when everyone else is doing the opposite, because your reasoning doesn't align, because over time your brain has learned to trust its own pattern recognition. The 13th sign is that you analyze emotions. Instead of getting lost in them, you can step back and understand what's happening emotionally, not just what you feel, but why it's happening, like noticing your own reaction and breaking it down instead of immediately acting on it, creating structured emotional awareness where you decode emotions instead of being controlled by them. The 14th sign is that you prefer meaningful input over surface level noise. Your attention naturally moves toward information that has depth, patterns, insights, and systems, like losing interest quickly in repetitive or shallow content while staying engaged in something that teaches you how things work, because your brain is optimized for extracting value. The 15th sign is that you understand things before you can explain them. You grasp ideas quickly, but translating them into words takes longer, like knowing the answer or solution internally, but needing time to organize it clearly for others, because your brain is processing multiple layers at once. Connections form internally before they're organized externally, so understanding comes first and explanation comes second. When you look at all of these patterns together, something becomes clear. This isn't random, it's a system. A brain that has adapted to process information efficiently, detect patterns early, and reduce uncertainty through analysis. And that's where the real shift happens, because what people often call overthinking is in many cases high-level processing without direction. What looks like being too sensitive to details is actually precision in observation. And what feels like being different is often specialization. But any system needs balance, because the same abilities that make your thinking powerful can also become excessive if they are always active. Prediction can turn into constant anticipation, analysis can turn into unnecessary complexity, and adaptation can turn into over-adjustment. This isn't a flaw, it just means the system needs control. The goal isn't to reduce how your brain works, but to direct it, to know when to analyze and when to act, to know which patterns matter and which don't. Because once you understand that your thinking isn't random, it becomes usable. And when it becomes usable, it becomes powerful. Not in a loud way, but in a precise way that allows you to move through situations with awareness instead of guesswork, to make decisions based on structure instead of impulse, and to understand complexity without being overwhelmed by it. And that is what makes this form of intelligence rare, not because it is better than others, but because it is built differently. And once you see how it works, you stop questioning it and start using it.